John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Matter is the slow transformation from spirit into light and sound, and ultimately into alchemical crystallization. We are condensed shapes of light, like leaves of a tree, which after falling in autumn are reborn in springtime. Our experiences are preserved in the souls. The cosmos is like a school with many classrooms, and therefore there are, as in a school, different grades of maturity. These grades of maturity of the worlds are separated by different levels of vibrations of matter in different dimensions. Thus, different material and spiritual worlds may exist in one place simultaneously. The physical eye, which perceives everything on the frequency of the three-dimensional world, can see only the three-dimensional world. When the sleeping God, the master of all that exists, became conscious of himself, the indefinable split into being and non-being, into spiritual world and material world, into the higher heavens of transcendence and the lower worlds of duality. The cosmos formed with all its dimensions and parallel worlds. The world of opposites, which we call duality, came into being. So there are immortal worlds which never experience change, and there are worlds which experience life through constant change. In order to be able to experience himself in infinite diversity, he created out of himself unlimited part consciousnesses, cosmic monads who gather infinite possibilities of experience in worlds of duality for the source of all existence. Every cosmic monad can gather experiences through the world of opposites, also known as polarity. Because such a part of God never descends into the mortal world of polarity, but only has to gather experiences, it separated a part of its universal mind and created the souls, a vessel for the universal experiences. The souls, on the other hand, worked in such a way that they needed many individual experiences. However, they could not identify themselves with these experiences. Therefore, they created a vessel, which we call the physical body, so that they could gather experiences by reincarnating from one life to the next in the world of opposites and slowly become perfect.
I am the spirit that lives in everything. I am the voice in the cosmos, in the wind, and in the nature of all that is. I am also the voice within you, only you have forgotten how to listen to it in silence. So listen now to the message on the outside, which is important during the last days of this old world, because every ending is also a new beginning. As a spirit of this planet, you are a part of my being as much as I am a part of you. Through you, I have lived thousands of lives to gather my experiences. Concealed within you, I have experienced innumerable cultures and personalities within the eternal cycle of life.
Mankind has always asked where it came from and where it is going. Scientists of all ages have tried to find the origin of life through physical evidence. They have split matter, studied the microcosm and macrocosm, but even so, they only observed life from a certain perspective, adding rows of parallel interpretations of reality. But they overlooked the most important thing of all, the creator of matter, the spirit that lives in all things, the blueprint and information which forms all matter. They see only subjective partial truths because the objective reality is an indefinable state of existence, out of which all conceivable partial truths emerge. They will keep splitting life down to the atom, but will not be able to prove the existence of the spirit. The experiment compares with attempting to capture beams of light. Human beings can never catch up with light unless they themselves become light. The same applies to mankind. It will never be able to prove the existence of spirit, but can only become spiritual itself, a process which the initiated call metamorphosis. Until then, even the most splendid achievements and inventions, as well as attempts at explanations of mankind, are an unconscious dream of being still asleep within the development of humanity. For millennia after the sinking of Atlantis during the Dark Age, man has been separated from himself and has been in search of the Holy Grail. The Holy Sacral, also called Grail, was man himself. Man himself is the holy container into which the Spirit of God flows. For thousands of lifetimes, mankind's developing soul has searched for itself during the descent of consciousness. Nations and people have been the classrooms of reincarnation in order to develop until that point in time where we enter again a new golden age and where man and God are reunited.
But as the ego strengthens itself, and as selfhood, we come back to even some sort of center, we will need to dispense with these things. But the problem is, as I've discovered, and which is very much in my message, is that there's also forces out there that know that man is striving to grow and become centered again. And they are deeply threatened by that force. They know there's an Aquarian age coming on. They know there's a fifth dimensional transcendence perhaps going to take place. They know that man is straining in this chains. But what does that mean for them and their cults? Well, it's obvious. It's like any corporation. They're going to lose readers, so to speak.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they're going to turn around and there's some chairs are empty.
Yeah.
Because that is deadly. So of course, what do? They come back in and try to shake up the problem, create more trauma to simulate the trauma. So this was done in the 1500s under Gregory the Seventh. It's been done by several popes. It's been done by several politicians. It's being done today. It's an old formula in which you re-traumatize people in order to get them to fall into line, into groupthink, and into lockstep. You see, and what we're seeing now is, as I always term it, a war on consciousness. What you're seeing in the outer permutations of it, as horrific as it is, and we need to address those horrors, is ultimately a war on consciousness.
So I'm just doing a little clip intro to the beginning of the second video, which flows on from the first, which continues the Dolores Cannon convoluted universes perspective, which will be a great intro to what I say later on in parts 3 and 4. And I might be overlaying my perspectives of the Incarnation War here that, as I said in the first video, were related to an output of all my information, all my understandings on the 25th of March 2016, which was right in the middle of pretty complex sort of set of circumstance for me. It was also a couple of months after going to Ayers Rock and doing the clearing there with Nikki Thatsy and stuff, and then we also did Galactic Special Forces Part 4, where we kicked butt under the species and basically removed them back to a single cell, and they were doing a lot of negative stuff, particularly around what is going on to bodies at the moment. And I think my energies have shifted and getting into gear of this now, because it's very important to know and have an appreciation of a bigger scale. And my attitude, it's time to get onto your healing and be spiritually selfish and take yourself as far as you can, all right? And so this will be the second part of the Incarnation War Part 2, and the second part of my inclusion of Dolores Cannon as a stepping stone sort of teacher to step up the complexity of what's going on here, because while I don't agree with all of her perspectives, some of her perspectives are very, very helpful in the attitudes to be able to integrate the complex level. So I hope you enjoy this, guys. I hope you get a lot from it, and I'll see you on the other side, because what I'm doing is I'm sort of cutting up the stream that I've done and sort of doing a like a method of approaching it and stuff. So I hope you enjoy. Hey guys, Andre Hodge, 7 of Truth, Infinite Potential Healing, Crocodile, Star-Lord, Wolverine, Aladdin, Dundee. I want to thank you being a courageous individual on the soul level. You, Galactic, Last Mimsy, Crazy Diamond of the universe. We are the best of the best here, guys, and it's time to own it. Things are getting pretty hectic, and the next few months are going to be pretty massive. So I hope you've gained a lot from part 1 of the Incarnation War series, or expansion of the multidimensional methods of 3D Madness series I've offered so far in 2021. This will be the second part of that, and the second one related to Dolores Cannon. And this time we get into a bit more of the complex and the reasons why we're here. This will be quite a powerful one after that first one. So if you've come from the other two, then you would have got a great overview of the setup and stuff, and how precious Earth is and stuff. This one will include 2 clips from Dolores out of the 5. And the first one is, it's where the Earth mission came up, right? And what she says is related to the 1940s when we developed atomic weapons. That was a big red flag for the universe of like, oh, okay, game on, serious. They're not meant to have this sort of stuff. And then she gets into the whole, the universe sort of realizes what's going on, and then gets engaged. And a lot of beings on the soul level get the call, and they feel drawn to incarnate into Earth and stuff. So the first clip is very powerful. It's a very good sort of intro to the expanded sort of level stuff that went on, because in relationship to Andrew's stuff, he said that Earth was moved 12 times, and one of the moving, it almost killed Earth, and she let out a cry. And it's a bit like if you've managed to see Zack Snyder's Justice League, where Superman was killed and he lets out this beacon. That's the sort of metaphor I felt. And yeah, a lot of us heard the cry in the multiverse, not just this universe. So that's where a lot of souls divested from their species and their body or whatever they were doing, and came and got entangled with the incarnation process here. And it's an incarnation war, and it's not just Earth this has been done, it's a method of war. Like the most of us, like the reason I offered the misconception of death and therefore life itself, it was to introduce that existence is far bigger than just our life here, where a lot of the belief systems, particularly the religions, is condenses down into this little 3D sort of thing, and we have one life and that's it, when there's a vast, that was to sort of control the reality, and there's what we could do here, and then we're all born into an unawareness realm, and we've got to play catch up, maintaining the control, which is, we're getting at a crescendo of that sort of thing. And like the falsehood's getting to a peak and stuff, and then the next few months are going to be really, really interesting. And that's why I've shared that book cover, because what's been done to the bodies is, I've used the metaphor of the Utopia series to go watch, right? So yeah, this is the first clip. It's really good. I hope you get a lot from it, and I'll see you on the other side.
I get so much information flooding into my head. Okay, let's take it in order, guys, get it together. Okay. So as they've been watching us and monitoring us all this time, they didn't like all the wars we were being involved with and all the things we were doing. Well, something happened in the end of the 1940s that really got their attention. This was when we developed the atomic bomb, right at the end of World War II. And they'd been watching us, but then when they saw that happen, they said, we better get down there and see what these kids are up to. They're playing around with something they're not supposed to be. We were not supposed to have that information yet. We were not supposed to have that knowledge, that invention. It was got in here before its time. Whenever we were supposed to get the knowledge of atomic power, it was supposed to be used for good. They knew we couldn't handle it. So what do? We develop it as a weapon. It's exactly what they didn't want us to do. Now, the only time they can interfere in the development of Earth would be if we reached the point where we were going to destroy the world. If it got to that point, they would have to step in, because if we destroyed this little planet, you think, what is the importance of this little planet over here? If we were to destroy our world, it would send reverberations throughout the solar system, throughout the galaxies. It would disturb other dimensions. There are other civilizations in other dimensions that we can't see. It would disturb everything and cause chaos. So they said it would not be allowed if we were to get to the point of destroying our world. That's the only time they would have to step in and interfere. So that's the first thing they thought of. Look what they've done. They have developed atomic power when they weren't even supposed to have it yet. They knew the danger of the possibility it could be. So they said, we better get down here and find out what's going on. Now, if you remember, at the late 40s, at the end of the war, was when the UFO flap began. There were isolated incidents before that. During the war, they were the ones they called the Foo Fighters, who were in the war. Those were just observers. But they didn't really get involved until at that time, at the end of the war, and that's when we began seeing the influx of UFO sightings began at that time. This is why. They came down here to figure out what's going on. Well, they knew, look, even after the war, we were all in the Cold War. It was a very dangerous situation. So it was like, okay, what are we going to do? You couldn't stop it. You couldn't take it away. That's interference. They couldn't just come in and tell you to stop all of this. So what they decided to do, I think, is brilliant. They came up with a very fascinating answer. They said they went back to the councils and they said, we're going to have to do something. See, the problem with Earth, we are all caught on that wheel of karma, going round and round and around, making the same mistakes again and again and again. You can't handle something that powerful. We would destroy the world. So they went back and said, what are we going to do? We can't just step in and stop, because that is interference. Well, the brilliant solution they came up with, they said, okay, we can't influence from the outside, but we can influence from the inside. This is the plan they came up to what they decided to do. Earth was caught on the wheel, too entrenched in karma. What if we bring in souls that have never been on Earth before? Pure souls, souls that are not contaminated, souls that have never been caught up in the wheel of karma. What if we bring them in and let them work from the inside? They said that way it's not interference. Especially if you ask for volunteers, you're not making anything happening. Are you following me? I know it's getting a little involved. That's why I wanted to try to do it step by step. You bring in souls that have never been trapped on the wheel of karma, who have never had it, never been here before. Maybe they could make a difference by influencing people in another way. So what they did, the call went out to the universes. Earth is in trouble. We need volunteers. We need people to come and help Earth. So the call went out all over. This sounds strange, but whenever I get hundreds of people telling me the same story when they're in this deep trance and they have no idea what I have received, it's got to be coming from somewhere. I always say the more information I get, the same story that adds validity to it. So now, when I'm doing the sessions, used to be they would go back to past lives. And that was where we did the therapy. Now I'm finding the only ones that I get past lives from are those who are still involved in karma and working out their karma. Now I'm having it happen time and time again. Instead of going back into past lives, they go back to the source when they were created by God and they've never left God. Or they are going back to lives when they were ETs, if you want to call them that, on spaceships, on other planets and other dimensions. That's what I'm getting now. And the people are just like you. They have no idea about this other part of themselves. They're just like you, and the memories are all there in their mind. And it comes through when I use this method of deep hypnosis. The same story comes out again and again. Now, when I did the Coast to Coast a few months ago, we were on the air all night long, and I was telling these stories. Afterwards, we had over 3,000 emails in just 2 days. People really identified with what I was saying. But one of them said, George Nuri wouldn't let you finish. He said, I would get to something, and I think he was a little afraid of what it was going to lead to, and he wouldn't let me complete the story. One of them was, people said he wouldn't let you talk about the source. He wouldn't let you talk about God. And maybe they are a little afraid of what we're going to find. But believe me, it's beautiful. So you want me, I can tell you about God, okay? Because well, I'm not going to just, say anything about the church, but really they are caught in their own thing. They have not really explored what it is all about. But what I have found, I've had many, many people now who go back to the beginning when they were with God. We were all there in the beginning. That's where we all started out, the source. And whenever we left the source, it exploded out. It said, go, my children, and learn everything and bring the information back. That's why there is no good, there is no bad, it's only experiences, lessons. What do you learn from those lessons? Well, they've all described God or the source the same way. First thing you're going to have to get over thinking he is a man. If anything, he would be a woman. Because the woman is the creative force, if he was going to be one or the other. But he is neither. It's an energy. We tend to personify because that's the way our brains work. It is a tremendous energy. And when they describe it as a huge, bright light. Some of them talk about the great central sun. And some of them say, I am in the sun, but it is not like the sun we know. It's a tremendous, huge, bright light. And when they go there, all they feel is total love. They are together. Everyone is together. And you don't know how that feels. They say, I'm back, I'm home. They always say, I'm home. And the feeling is so tremendous, they don't want to leave because they're all together. And when they were sent out, they felt a separateness. And a lot of us are still looking for that. We want to go back. We always want to go home. We don't understand where home is, but we know it's not here. But when they go back to that, it is such a tremendous feeling. They have love washing over them. I've seen the body shake and convulse because they're experiencing the beauty of it. So when they go to that part, I'll say, well, I know I'm talking to a body laying on the bed. And I say, well, if it was so beautiful and they don't want to leave, then why did you leave? They had to if I'm speaking to them now. And they will always say the same thing. I heard the call, and I volunteered to go. And a lot of times they're on the spirit side, I've had them being meetings, and these spirits will be talking to them saying, Earth is in trouble. Will you want to go and help? And they've never been anywhere. Imagine what that would be like. That pure, that uncontaminated, and to come here? When they come into the body, it's like, oh my, what was I thinking about? Because Earth it's the densest, heaviest planet there is. And when they come into the body, when they're being born, they'll say, I don't want to be here. It's just so heavy and dense. I like it better when I was over there. So this is what God is. It is a tremendous energy. And it's so full of total love. But some of these people have come, and you're going to find out by the time I get finished with this, many of you are sitting here right now. But this is what happened when I did it on the air. Everybody was identifying with, I'm going to tell you the signs of how to know if you're one or not. But other ones were on spaceships, UFOs, other planets. They also heard the call because they go back to this life when they're just living a normal life as an alien body. And then I said, well, what happened? Why did you come? I heard the call. He said, the call went out. Anybody who wants to help Earth, come. Earth is in trouble. And they all decided to come. But when you come, the memories are taken away. So here they are, stuck in the body. So what I've found is 3 waves, I call them, the 3 waves of volunteers. The ones, now many of you are probably the old school, they're still stuck on the wheel of karma, but I think when you're interested in these kind of things, maybe your mind is opening up, maybe you are part of the other groups. But everything is changing now. The first wave, when I wrote my book, Keepers of the Garden, he was the first one I found, and I didn't know what in the world it was. Now I'm finding it again and again and again, and I call them the first-timers. The first wave, I think, are like in their 50s now. So you can see, I said the age when it all started. My daughter says she thinks I'm being too rigid on these ages because some of them may overlap. But the first wave had the most difficult time of all. They are like in their 40s and 50s. But I've had some contact me that are in their early 60s, and I think I fall into the same category. So you can't be too rigid, but it started right after the atomic bomb when the first call went out. The first wave, most of them their whole life, they've not wanted to be here. They felt like they didn't belong. They said, I don't want to be here. They don't understand the violence. I want to go back. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I don't know where home is, but it's not here. Many of that first wave have tried to commit suicide because they don't want to be here. They've had a very difficult time. Now, the second wave, I think, are going in their 40s and the 30s. The second wave is like channels of energy. They say they're antennas. They are just here as a generator to let energy flow through them, and so that they can send it out to other people. All they have to do is walk through a mall, walk through a crowded store, and their energy affects everybody. Of course, they don't know it's doing that, but that's what they're here for, is to spread the energy. They don't have to do anything. They said they just have to be. So they have a lot more peaceful than the first one did. And I asked them one time, why did the second group have a much easier time than the first group did? They said because the first group were the way showers, the pioneers. Somebody had to blaze the trail. The second group followed after that. And we're probably going to get into some more. Oh, the second group, too, usually don't have children, because they said having children creates karma. They just want to do their job and get out of here. They don't want to get stuck. Just do this assignment, then we're all going back home where we're supposed to go. Now, the third wave are the new children. These are the ones that are the hope of the world. They are coming in with everything in place. Everybody's DNA is being changed because we are moving into a whole new world, a whole new earth. The DNA is being changed in our bodies so we can adapt to the frequencies, the changes of the frequencies. The new children the DNA is already there. It's already adapted. They are in place. We have to play catch up. Let me say something before I forget it. Okay, when this energy came into the bodies at the first time, you imagine how that energy would be so, well, alien is a good word, even if it came from the source. It would be so different to enter into a human body that the energy is so strong and it doesn't match the energy of the human body. So many times when they first tried the experiment of getting their soul into the fetus, the energy was too strong. This meant the mother's energy also was not compatible. So many times it would cause the baby to abort or to have miscarriage because the energies wouldn't match. So when that happened, they would try again. It was supposed to be those parents. And this time they said, well, we'll just send part of the energy in, of the soul, so that the fetus can handle it. And then as the child grows older, we'll give a little more of the energy. So if you can understand this, it's as though the whole soul does not enter at one time. So many people have noticed changes in their life from childhood as it goes along. They said something different was happening because some of the energy was being downloaded little by little until the body could handle it. And I've had clients that tell me after we have that, they say, you know, my mother did have several miscarriages before I was born. That was why they had to adjust with the mother's energy as well as the new incoming soul's energy because it was too different. So this is important as I go along with this. But these are the three waves. And it has caused problems because they don't understand why they're here. I think one thing is ironic about the second wave. They're supposed to be interacting with people because their energy influences everybody around them. But a lot of them don't want to be here. They don't like people. They don't like the way it makes them feel, so they isolate themselves away from people. And I said, that's defeating the purpose. How ironic. You're here to help with the people, and yet you close yourself away from them. But my daughter thinks maybe that means those are still influencing by just being here. Their energy maybe is helping in that way. But we have the three waves. Okay. Now, what I've found, I brought that. Well, there's even some more complicated, but I don't want to get into too much of that. But when I was on the air with George Nuri, he said, this explains the baby boomers. It's that age group, the baby boomers, because look at all the babies that were being born at that time. And also look at what happened in the 60s. The people, they didn't want war, they wanted peace. We had the hippies and the peace movement. They were all trying to make changes. They just didn't fit in with the violence that was going on in the world.
So I hope you enjoyed that a lot. It's a very powerful clip. It was good to brew the other part to get to that. Now I'm going to show you the last clip. And this is about what Earth is going through, and we have to be a match for it, and the frequency shifts and stuff like that. So this goes back to that image I've been showing for a while, relative to the Earth shifting relative to the frequencies of the galaxy we're in, and that's where I started using this video, this clip, this image, sorry, in Foundational Components Part 1, the bigger picture, a bigger picture. So where I offered that we're moving into a different frequency relative to the galaxy, relative to a video that I did with Andrew called the Solar System Update in 2018. And so if Earth is moving into a new frequency and humanity aren't choosing to change their frequency to be a match, then perhaps there's going to be a lot of death, all right? A lot of people are going to be shed. They're not going to be a match here. And that's okay, and that's why I've offered the misconception of death and therefore life itself video to really be an ally to training and to see things in a different perspective and be a bit more detached from what individuals and stuff go around you, because it's going to take a lot of courage to really allow that to happen. You have to go from being sort of a component of other people's lives to a like a neutral appreciation, like I've used the Ram Dass clip about keeping your heart open in hell, which I might offer at the end of this. Alright, so yeah, this clip relative to Dolores will just be a really cool teaching relative to that and what's going to be required, and her grandmother's sort of nurturing image energy will be a real powerful stepping stone, because the stuff I offer in part 3 and 4 will be pretty harsh. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you on the other side.
But the DNA is being changed because we are moving into this new Earth that I've talked about before. In order to go into the new Earth, our frequency and vibration has to be raised and changed and adapted. Otherwise, we can't go, we can't shift. And that's what's happening to all of you right now as we move into the new Earth. He said before, down through time, a civilization would reach the peak of development. I mean, they could do anything. Atlantis was only one of them. There were many others before that. You would get to the point where you could do absolutely anything with your mind. This is how they built the pyramids. They were able to raise the stones with their mind. They were able to make stones malleable to where they could form them in any way they wanted. They did away with disease. They could live as long as they wanted. The civilizations reached the peak of what you could do with your mind. And every time, there's always the man, I'm sorry to say. Women are the ones that don't seem to cause that much problems, I don't think. Women don't make the wars. They don't do all these other things. I'm sorry, guys. But in every case, it was the men who wanted power. They wanted greed. They wanted more. They're the ones that made the civilization had to be destroyed, because they started doing the wrong things with their minds. I always think maybe they got bored. If you could do absolutely anything, you didn't age, you didn't get sick, you could do anything you wanted, maybe it would be boring, and said, let's go ahead and try something else. So they began to get too much power, and this is what eventually led to the demise of especially Atlantis. They were using crystal powers, and they said, we haven't even begun to tap what we can do with crystals. The powers of crystals is tremendous. We're just beginning to scratch the surface. They could use crystals for anything. So they developed these systems, but then they also overdid it. Let me talk a little bit about Atlantis. They said one of the main reasons Atlantis had to go down was because they were going against the laws of nature. They were experimenting by combining animals and human. Your legends of the half man, half animals, they don't come from Greece. They came from Atlantis. They were handed down into the Greek legends, but they started with Atlantis. The centaurs, the half man, half horse, the half man, half bull, all of these were experiments that the Atlanteans were doing. And a lot of it was done, they made servants out of them, slaves, and used them in different things like that. But they said they were disobeying the laws of nature. You're not supposed to fool around with things like that. It was one of the main reasons that Atlantis had to go down. They said the one reason you have to know this is because your own civilization is doing the same thing. We're fast approaching that point where this cannot be allowed, the line has to be drawn. Some of you probably know about where they're introducing the human cells into the pigs so they can use the pig organs to transplant into the human body. Because the human body will reject something that is foreign, but it won't reject it if it has human cells. And that was the logic behind the whole thing. But there was one scientist who said, I don't think this is safe. Because, sure, you can eat pork, you can handle pigs, but what would happen if you put the organ in the human body and the blood was flowing through that constantly? He said, we could create a disease that there would be no cure for. And he said, you better take it slow here and really look at this. So they stopped the experimentation for a little while. But then they said, oh, I don't think it'll happen, so now they're doing it again. And they told me, you're going down the wrong way. You're headed down the same road of destruction that all the other ones have gone down. But in the case of Atlantis, a lot of it had to do with the crystals, too. They were using too much crystal power. They ended up making holes in the ozone layer that let the sun come through and was burning part. This is how some of the deserts were formed in the world. They were also creating too much power that the earth couldn't handle it. So they said this had to be stopped. It had gone too far. This is the explanation for the Bermuda Triangle. That was part of the original Atlantis. And if you can picture this, on that point there was a temple, and they did time travel and time experimentation, going back and forth, and there was a temple that used crystals that they could open and close portals so they could travel through time. Well, when the Atlantis went down, that temple was destroyed, and the machines there were partially destroyed. So they're still firing in an erratic fashion. This is why if ships or planes happen to be in the area and it would just shoot upward through the water, it causes them to be zapped into another portal into a different time. Now, does that make sense to you? Yeah. To me, I think it's the explanation of it. But they said every time through history, when the civilization would get to that point, we'd have to destroy it. And then we had to start all over again. They would leave a few survivors to begin again, erase all the knowledge that they had. Now, some of them were not erased that went to Egypt, and they're the ones that built the pyramids. But they had to start all over again from scratch. They said it was almost like they blew a fuse, and they couldn't allow the humans to continue that way. Let's just shut it down, and start all over. But every time, look at the amount of time that had to be building up the civilization again and again and again. We are now approaching that point where we're at the same level. Psychic abilities are being brought back. Everything is happening. The mind is growing. We're learning more. We are reaching the point where we could be at the height that these other civilizations were. They don't want to have to destroy it and start all over again. But if we were foolish enough to get to that point, they would have to do it, to shut us down and begin all over again. And they said there's no more time left. The earth is a living being. It is evolving. It is moving and changing. It is time for the earth itself to evolve and move into another dimension, into its next part. They said the earth doesn't care if the human race goes with it or not. We're like fleas on a dog anyway. They don't like it because of the irritation we cause to this beautiful planet. It's going to evolve, whether we go or not. If we could go with it, because it's going into the next dimension, which is going to be extremely beautiful. It's going to be wonderful. But we can only go if our frequency and vibration matches the earth as it moves. So that's what's happening now. Now these beings, like I said, they are already here, and many of you are probably, some of them, you probably can identify with some of the things I said. You're all moving into this other dimension. Everyone will not go. Some won't be able to go. You can only go if your frequency matches the one you're going into. If you're caught up in the frequency of the earth, which is very dense and heavy, you're caught up into the negativity, you're not going to be able to move. You're not going to be able to go when the earth moves. Because they said you must stay with what you have created. I think you all know people who are into the negativity. They're not into these things. Not that it makes us any better or worse, but their vibration is not the same. So they will not be able to change the vibration that quickly to move into the new earth. Now they said the person cannot change the frequency all at once. It's impossible. It would destroy the body. The energy is too great. It's too strong. So the energy must be gradually increased. And this began, I think, around 2003 is when it all started. It may have been going on before that. It became more noticeable about 2003. And people began noticing physical symptoms in their body. And a lot of them have told me, well, they go to the doctor, and the doctor can't find anything wrong with them. And after a few days, the physical symptoms would go away, and it would level out. Then maybe in a couple of months, it would start in again. Different kinds of physical symptoms. And the doctor here wouldn't understand what was going on. So all of it has to do with the adjustments. And I had a client, the last one, we did the demo. I just came from giving a class in Hawaii, and our demo for the class demonstration was telling the same story. You know, she was one of these beings. She was the one that was a channel of energy. And they were telling her DNA had been changed, and that it was her husband was dying, and they said that was all right. He could not change the vibration and frequency. If you can't change the vibration, you'll just leave the planet. And they said, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. You can't change it that quick. So as you adapt to it, you're able to move with it. You see what I'm talking about? But all of them aren't going to go. A lot of them are going to be caught up in the disasters, the tsunamis, the earthquakes. That's why so many are leaving all at one time. They want to get out of here and watch from the other side. They want to observe. They said this is the greatest show on earth. ETs are loving it. Everybody's watching to see, are we going to be able to pull it off? Are we going to be able to do it? Because when I've asked them a lot of questions about the new earth, they said, we can't answer all your questions because we don't know. Nobody knows. This is the first time this has ever happened in the history of the universe, that an entire planet will shift into another dimension, taking everything with it. You see why they had to do this, because they said, we had to make some changes here. And that's why they brought in the pure souls, the new blood, those that don't have any karma. The ones that came in on these first waves had like a sheath, I guess, or a coating put over them, their souls, so they will not accumulate karma, because they don't want to be stuck here. This is part of their problems on how we're going to handle all of this. It's very difficult for all of them. But I talked before about the new earth and where we're going with that.
Hey, welcome back. I hope you gained a lot from that and this overall video and the first one as well. If you've come through it now, then you probably realize why they're so cool. And then if you watch the other two that I'll release later, relative to my own perspectives, relative to what I had to gestate and comprehend on myself, if I show you the image relative to my own creation over the top of this, is that you'll see how that sort of intermediate or entry-level teaching relative to Dolores will be a great ally to actually helping explain the more advanced concepts there, because it's been one of the reasons why I probably held off. It's probably been a bit hard to really offer out from the get-go, but with all the other components that I've offered so far, it will be a lot easier to digest for those of you that have been dedicated. For those that you have challenges with this, then all it is just consciousness Tetris, and keep revisiting it and keep exploring. And a lot of my videos are layered, right? They're not aimed for a one-hit wonder sort of listening. You have to listen to them over and over again, and my energy and my field and everything is embedded with this because it's game on time for humanity. So I hope you really enjoyed Dolores. She's wonderful. It's been really cool for me to revisit her and stuff and explore that one once again. And if she's new to you, then she's a really interesting teacher out there that's got a lot of perspectives. I've got another book which I can't find, the 3 waves. I do have that. I've lent a lot of books out over the years and I've never gotten them back, and it is what it is, but she might be a help. There's a fair bit out there, and yeah, I hope these have helped you so far. I hope you're seeing a bit different. I hope you're starting to see the pattern recognition of the reality and stuff and all the drama going on and not getting caught up with it. And if you've got drama in your home phone and stuff, own home and stuff, and there's a real shift that's going on in the human family right now where people are taking stuff and it's affecting them. And I hope you have taken on board what I've said about some of the interviews I've had and go and explore them, the body. I've mentioned nutritional suffocation, all right? And that's, for me to get on top of all this and do all I've done and share I've done, nutrition was a foundational component. I realized I worked out a solution 10 years ago of all this stuff, and I've been living it despite all the hardships I've been through and stuff. So they're just hints, all right? I can't say too much more. But I've also got another channel on a different environment that I might be able to share other perspectives as well if I need to really want to let the truth rip, all right? But thank you for finding me. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this once more. If you're going to seek me for a session, I look forward to meeting you and seeing where we can go. I highly advise it now. I'm not trying to sell it. It's time to get on your game, and seeking sessions can accelerate you a great deal. A lot of people have had chips and blocks of being able to hear my information, and I'm pretty much on a pretty good frequency and going pretty hardcore. Like I said, Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, mystical time, all right? So if you've come to the end of the second part of the Incarnation War that includes Dolores Cannon as a teacher of that I'm employing here, I want to thank you for finding me. I hope you've gained a lot from this. I hope this has really shifted your perspectives on some of the polarity and the need to actually hit the books hard and get onto stuff. I've offered many videos in the past in this multidimensional method to the 3D Madness series, particularly the soul level things and the predictability and the psychic defense stuff and integrating memories and like accessing memories via the passive mode and stuff like that. The reality sonar, employing your advanced empathy, and the last couple being the enjoy the ride and the misconception of death and therefore existence itself, because it's potentially going to be a quite tough ride. And as I showed the book, I'm just showing it because I don't want to really say it because I know the words are sort of checked, but perhaps this is going on. And if you understand the scales of what Earth is in the universe, if you've listened to Dolores and stuff and all the other stuff I've said, then perhaps things aren't going to go too great, all right? But it's up to us to anchor it and be strong and stuff, right? And I really enjoy the Batman series of movies, which I've obviously used clips for and stuff like that. And yeah, in the Batman Begins with Christian Bale, he climbs the mountain and he just gets to the top and he gets to the League of Shadows and he's wanting a break, and then then it's like he's just done mountain climbing, he's totally exhausted, and they don't rest. It's game on. Like there's sense weakness and they go hard at him when he's at his weakness. So you're going to have to find your strength, and perhaps a lot of people around you that you think are allies, they're going to not be able to be up to it and stuff. So you're going to have the courage to shift and do like I did. Like I said, become a castle with a moat with crocodiles and the drawbridges up and fuck off energies broadcast. Like, and you've got your own vetting process like me, where I only allow clients in now. All right. So I want to thank you for finding me. If you feel there's something I can help you with, I'd love to explore with you. Seek me out for a session. Like I said, I do very long sessions because I'm investing as much as I can in to get the people up to speed as quick as possible. And it might be a massive shortcut. You don't know what you haven't got resolved and stuff like that. So it's a very courageous investment right now, and I look forward to dealing with the people that find me. And thank you for finding me, and I hope you gained a lot from this, and lots of love to you. We are the best of the best. We are the galactic crazy diamonds, last mimsies, and I want to thank you for finding me, and hang in there. We can do this. Best of luck. Lots of love. Andre out.
Well, you seem to be, if one carries your position to its logical extreme, it means being willing to look at the grossest, most hellish misery on the planet.
All of it.
And embrace it.
All of it. All of it. You look just directly at, you learn how to keep your heart open in hell. Mm-hmm. You see the horrible beauty of the universe. I remember once I was teaching down at Big Sur at Esalen, and they gave me a house to house sit, and it came with a cat, and the cat and I became buddies, and every day the cat would come in when I was meditating in the morning and bring in its morning breakfast, which was a lizard or something, which was usually still alive, and it would sit down between my legs to eat, to be with me. And I would be sitting there being with God, and I'd hear squeak, squeak, crunch, crunch, and I didn't know who to hate. I mean, I loved the cat, but suddenly the cat was a killer. And I loved the lizard because I identified with the, you know, and I went through all the changes, and then I saw it is the phenomena of nature. You've got to be able to look at it all and say, yes, I acknowledge it, without being so busy reacting to it that you don't, because you don't even understand why it is that way. I mean, my ability to see around the edge of the, as Rilke said, the billboard at the edge of town, being able to see just around the edge of the veil, and I can just see a teeny little bit, just like we all can, leads me to understand the game is much farther out than I thought it was. That suffering has, I mean, I can understand the term suffering is grace. I can't live it. I can live it at moments with little sufferings. But I can understand that there is a beautiful unfolding of awareness through suffering. That's what my work with the dying is about.
You can have it or you don't have it. And that's what I've said about the Constitution. It's what I've said about any doctrine, Magna Carta. What good are those documents when man himself has lost his psychic sovereignty? If man has no inner republic, if he's lost his constitutional sovereignty, if he's violated himself psychically, then what good is some piece of paper? You can bullhorn it to death. You see, scream it.
Yeah.
You can buy 101 bumper stickers for your car. Let's get back to the Constitution. It doesn't mean a thing unless you have Constitution within you. Constitutions of law and society are based on human contracts of moral and virtuous relationships between men. You know what is breaking down in our society today, Henrik? Is that virtue. That is why you see it breaking down on the social, slightly higher macrocosmic level. It's because it is breaking down, and that involves a lot of mind control and other things, but ultimately, again, it's breaking down because man has lost his center. It's in his consciousness that he's losing his virtue, his morality, his conscience. So all the documents in the world will never work, and more so, you're going to engender then the kind of individuals that we see in society who will come in with their hammer and chisel and chip away at these documents and say we don't need them anymore. They'll do exactly what you've seen. They will eviscerate them, they will change them, they will modify them, they will rewrite them, they will rescript it, and they'll roll over your rights. They'll turn the whole system upside down, and people will accept it. They may verbally, you know, it's cheap and easy to sit at the coffee shop going, what a terrible world we're living in. If those people themselves, you see, have lost their inner constitution. If we are divided within, right, where you actually now are feeling that one part of you, you're disassociated from it, it's not part of you, it's not integrated into consciousness, then we have to find the internal adversary. And we know that it is. And it doesn't matter whether you buy into Freud's 3-part schemata, you know, or Jung's 4-part schemata. It's simple. We know that there's a conscious and unconscious self. Many divisions. We have the persona. We even call people persons. Right? Here's a person. The word just means a facade. You know? Even the very word refers to just a facade. And as I said, if you have disharmony within these modes of being, right, within the anatomy of your own psyche, some people have more, some people have less. If you have these kinds of divisions and this kind of disharmony, you're not only a weaker individual, you are now dependent on all the gimmickry that's going to come in and tell you how to gain it. So instantly you've lost your center. And then one thing leads to yet another and another and another, as you try to get out of the mix, out of the problem. As we said, the door to truth is narrower than you think. We are entrapped in a maze, in a web. And the strange thing about that web is that the more that you try to escape from it, the tighter it becomes. We're strangling ourselves often by our very attempts to be free. Who do you think loves that? Who do you think earns dividends because of our efforts, even spiritually, to liberate ourselves? Who earns points from that? Who is established from that? Do you see what I'm trying to say? That the bottom of the pyramid supports the top. And if you follow my work on atomism, you'll know there's no difference between the two. The atonists, right, the Christians, burned the Library of Alexandria. That's right. This thing that we know as Christianity, this cult, couldn't survive if there was the old philosophies.
Sure.
Of the druidic, shamanic way that says all men must know selfhood. That if you're going to come to our round tables, and if you're going to come to be a key part of society, we don't want you to be a faceless, soulless minion, you know, dribbling nonsense.
Yeah.
We want you to be a completely sane, rational, enlightened, focused, naturally empowered person, forget about heaven, study nature. It's in front of the universal force is already put before you, your greatest textbook. How can you be blind to that and then tell me you got sanity? How can you abstract into your own mind, like the Eastern guys are trying to tell you to do, you see? How can you abstract from the world and think that it's evil when you were born into it in the first place?
Yeah.
Look at the contradictory, type of stuff that's going on here.
Yeah.
Now, the present era, the age of revealing, the age of awakening. Well, the trauma, I say, occurred in relatively recent times. The plagues we experience are relatively new. We are in the beginning stages of understanding and recovery. This healing has negative consequences for the architects of control and for all forms of totalitarianism, as we've already stated. We are young. This trauma happened recently, so we're still in the early stages. We have to be very forgiving and very compassionate with ourselves and realize that we're making great progress, and greater progress will be done. And as this healing and recovery takes place, that is the main death knell for the Black Lodge, for the sorcerers. Nothing else. You can run around with your political placards as much as you like. They're not even worried about that.
When life reached its peak after having evolved from the minerals through to flora and onto fauna, the snakes of wisdom, the already completed angels, descended in order to grant man his higher inner guidance. Therefore, two voices now lived in each man. Through reincarnating from one to the next life, he felt drawn towards his higher self. Now the time of awakening has come, when each human being can unite with his higher self in order to accomplish his ascension.
So everything I've done, like the Galactic Special Forces, all that, it's in the algorithm of my Akashic record and my frequency, my DNA and all that sort of stuff. So it's there. So it's like I'm a codex of codes and stuff. So whatever code the individual needs, they get, sort of thing. Whatever's the right time of their journey and stuff in their consciousness Tetris. And this information, it's funny, it's from my perspective, I'm giving you the answers at the end of the like, say, math book and stuff, and I don't know if schools use books anymore, but they used to give us textbooks with the answers in the end, and you weren't meant to cheat. But because I'm giving you the answers on many things, it probably won't make sense because you don't have the context, because to understand the context, you do have to go through that consciousness Tetris, and I might be overlaying an image of a competition of Tetris, so you get, like, unless you get the right blocks for the lower levels, you're not going to comprehend this sort of stuff, and that's all cool. Trust me, the discovery process is awesome here, all right? It's one of the gifts we have in this unawareness realm, and that. So I love that journey of discovery. It's such a gift to get new realizations, and you get that level clear, and then you see things from a totally different perspective, and I love that shift that you get, especially when you're wrong, all right?
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.